Done it.
All right, and I'm gonna share my screen. Uh, 1 second.
Is there a problem?
Yeah, I just have to, okay, here we go. All right, can y'all see that?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so as Miss Teresa mentioned, I'm Deja Henry. I'm from Louisiana, and this is my presentation. So you have family in Louisiana. So just a little bit about me and my research. As she mentioned, I'm from New Orleans, as are both of my parents. And so both sides of my family, I research in Louisiana. On one line, I can go as far as back as 8 generations in the city of New Orleans. And my primary locations of research are New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and the river parishes in between. So that's St. John the Baptist Parish, St. James, and St. Charles parishes. All of these are located along the river, the Mississippi River, in between Baton Rouge and Louisiana. And both sides of my family come from these areas. And so this information that I've gathered is from about 10 years or so of researching in these locations. I took my first trip to the Louisiana State Archives with my dad in like middle school, and from then on just kept going at it. So here are some kind of basic things you need to know. So you've heard me say the word parishes. Parishes are equivalent to counties. That's what we call them in Louisiana, and the state is divided into 64 of them. The city of New Orleans itself is older than the United States. So it was founded in 1718 by French colonists. And as a result, its records go pretty far back. But before the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, it was under French and also Spanish control. So this means that if you go far back enough, some of the records that you may find may be in French or Spanish. And they may be in French or Spanish, and even sometime after that period, you find records in those languages. Catholicism was the religion, and still is. There's still a pretty heavy contingent of Catholicism in the state and in the city of New Orleans. And the Catholics have a lot of really good records, so you may find even baptism records for enslaved people during that time period. And some records, which I found out just last night, some records that the Catholic Church keeps may be in Latin. So you may need a translator for like 3 or 4 different languages in researching in Louisiana. Another thing that's important to note is free people of color. Louisiana had a pretty large contingent of people, free people of color. So in 1810, New Orleans had the largest free people of color population of any Southern city, and they made up 29% of the city's population. So this means you may find your ancestors listed before the 1870 census, if they were free in Louisiana. And another thing that I would note is just don't be surprised if your ancestors cross the color line. I started this research thinking, oh, I'm just blackety black, and it didn't take long before I found like mulatto or white listed as some of my ancestors due to the like social and political or the due to the environment in Louisiana, there was a lot of mixing. So getting started there, you would start with pretty much the same things that you would start with in any location that you're researching. So vital records are housed at the Louisiana State Archives. They are, you can either access them on site or by mail. So you can go to the state archives and pull up the microfilm and print it out yourself, or you could download this form that you could send in and with a check or money order. So in 2024, I'm still using checks. Newspapers, as I mentioned, New Orleans and the state of Louisiana are pretty old. So one advantage of that is that they have good documentation for a long period of time. And there are dozens and dozens of newspapers that you can find digitized that go back pretty far. And they also, again, could be in French, Spanish, and even German. So I listed some of the newspapers there. The one that's currently still printing is the New Orleans Times-Picayune. Before that, the New Orleans States Item, which I believe the Times-Picayune bought. And then I've also listed two Black newspapers, the Louisiana Weekly and the New Orleans Tribune. Again, the Catholic diocese, they have records of baptisms, marriages, funerals. They also ran orphanages that they kept records for, and they have records for their cemeteries. And so this photo that you see is a photo of Louisiana as it is now, and with the 64 parishes outlined. And then I would also just say the foundation of researching in Louisiana is pretty much the same as you would research anywhere else. Think of like the same like what places, or you would just ask yourself the question of what places or systems would people regularly interact with, like churches, schools, etc. So a few places for on-site research. The picture I have there is the Louisiana State Archives, which is the largest of these places and holds a lot of different things. There's also the New Orleans Notarial Archives, which I haven't been to yet, but that holds records of anything that had to be notarized. So many things in there. The Amistad Research Center at Tulane University is a good spot for Black history and culture research. The Historic New Orleans Collection has a lot of things specific to New Orleans, and they also have like online collections that show video and photos of like jazz funerals and things like that in the city. And then, of course, local libraries and courthouses in your parish would have local records, such as some of them include the birth, marriage, and death records before it was required by the state to keep them. So starting with the Louisiana State Archives, this is located in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And it's the state's official repository for historic records. So many of these things are coming from governing bodies, but some are also from private acquisitions, people's personal collections. So some notable things that I found or that I've seen on the finding aids and on site in the Louisiana State Archives are vital records. As I mentioned, they're self-serve there. You just pop in the microfilm and print out copies. I believe they're like 25 cents a copy if you do that in person, compared to $5 each if you do it by mail. So another thing that they have is a register of free people of color. They have Civil War diaries from people who were in the Civil War. They have directories for certain professions, such as the State Board of Barbers Records. So anyone with a barber's license would be documented there. And for that specific job, most of the records have photos, so you could see a picture of that person. And then they also hold some parish-specific records, such as one of the things that was listed there was the Ascension Parish Clerk of Court, Historic Slavery and Land Sales and Civil Records. And then other things from state-like governmental bodies or institutions, such as this one that I have from the East Louisiana State Hospital, and also a leper's home. But this East Louisiana State Hospital, which I have pictured here, is or I don't know if it's still open, but a hospital for mental illnesses. And so the record that I have there, those are screenshots from a record I found at the Louisiana State Archives of my second great grandmother. And it lists like some information that would be collected upon like admission to the hospital. So it tells you how old she is. She was 93 years old. Said she was having a drinking problem. And also that she lived with her daughter, whose address is also listed there. But one of the things that I found interesting in that bottom section of it, it says that she's a very old colored female who states that she was once a slave. So then I know that she was enslaved. And also gives a little bit about her physical description. And these are just screenshots from a couple different pages, but the record in total is like 80 pages or something like that. So another place that I've gone to research and is the Amistad Research Center. It's housed at Tulane University in New Orleans. And it was started by Fisk in Nashville in 1966 to house the historic records of the American Missionary Association. And now it's an independent organization and is housed at Tulane and holds a repository of things related to African American people, history, and culture. So some notable collections. The first one that I have there is Richmond Barthé. He was an artist during the Harlem Renaissance. He was actually from Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, which is not far from New Orleans. And that is on the right is a photo of him in his studio with one of the sculptures. He primarily did sculpture and paintings. And then I also listed a few people relevant to Memphis. So there's George Washington Lee Papers, W.C. Handy, and H.T. Lockard, all people related to Memphis. Another person who has a collection there is A.P. Turo. He was a civil rights lawyer. He went to my alma mater, Howard University, and he was from New Orleans. His collections include some things like the Knights of Peter Claver, which is still in operation, but it's a organization for Black Catholic people. He also had some records on the Black customs collectors of the 19th century. And then there's a genealogist in Louisiana, Antoinette Harrell, who has donated her papers. She's still alive and still doing genealogy, but she's been donating things such as like funeral programs and ledgers, things related to her church, and a lot of different things that she's found over the years. And she actually has a TV show, or had a TV show on the like public broadcasting channel, which I was on when I was in like middle school. So some things that could be included in the papers at the Amistad Center are correspondence like letters, ledgers, funeral programs, school catalogs, photographs, people's own genealogical research, and pretty much just anything that you could think of that someone might keep record of. And so, as I mentioned before, just thinking of the places and systems that people would regularly interact with, I would go to education or educational institutions. So this is from high schools. So high schools in Louisiana were desegregated in 1970, which was 16 years after the Brown v. Board decision in 1954. But there is a website called, and this is the entire name of the website, African American High Schools in Louisiana Before 1970.com. It's all one word. And that is an archival project that highlights these segregated schools before 1970. And so it lists the schools by parish and gives historic information about the schools, how they were founded, people who went there, photographs, interviews with alumni, and some schools have yearbooks going back. The earliest yearbooks I saw were from 1928, and this is one of those from McKinley High School in Baton Rouge. It was the first public Black high school for people in that parish. And the another school that has a 1928 yearbook is in New Orleans, McDonald 35, which is my mom's alma mater. They were also the first in Orleans Parish, the first public high school for Black people to go to, and that school was founded in 1917. Moving along with education, there are also the colleges and universities. So Louisiana is and has been home to several historically Black colleges and universities, including Dillard University, which you see in that diagram was merged New Orleans University and Straight College. Both of those were institutions that educated Black people. Xavier University of Louisiana, Southern University. The first two are in New Orleans. Southern University is in Baton Rouge, but also has a campus in New Orleans. Grambling State University in Grambling, Louisiana, which is all of those are still open except this bottom one, which is Leland College, which was started in New Orleans but moved to Baker, Louisiana, and is now closed. But many of these places have their own collections, and some have digitized yearbooks or newspapers. So this photo that I have here was done in 1951 for Dillard's newspaper, the Coubillon, and it is a diagram pretty much of all the heritage of Dillard University, all the institutions that made it and came out of it, including Flint Goodrich Hospital, which educated Black nurses. So Xavier University of Louisiana, which is in New Orleans. I haven't done any on-site research there, but they do have a good bit of their records digitized. So some of the collections include newspapers, photographs, oral history, voter documents, some people's personal collections and records on a variety of local organizations. There's also school, like photos from the school classes and stuff. These pictures that I have here were taken by Arthur Badu. He was a New Orleans photographer. He was Creole, and he was a pretty prolific photographer, especially among Creole people in New Orleans. But he was also Booker T. Washington's personal photographer. So if you see on that picture on the right, Booker T. Washington is in the center, seated. And to his right is Walter Cohen, who was a Black politician and businessman in New Orleans. So he was one of the Black people who held an office politically after Reconstruction. He also founded the People's Life Insurance Company. And the rest of the people in the photo are not named in Xavier's collection. But the photo on the left is the first communion at Corpus Christi Elementary School, which is a Catholic school. And that is their first communion. So newspapers, as I mentioned before, there are lots of them in New Orleans. And due to like the age of the city and of the state, there's a lot to go off of, and Black people have obituaries and records in both Black and white newspapers there. So I primarily use Genealogy Bank for Louisiana newspapers. And so those are a couple that I mentioned before. One of the earliest newspapers I saw there dated back to 1829. And newspapers.com also has the Louisiana Weekly, which is a Black newspaper. So I go to newspapers.com specifically for that newspaper. It has their paper digitized from 1956 to 1977. And so these images on the left are mainly from Black newspapers, because Black newspapers often had more detailed information on Black people and their lives, as well as advertisements for Black businesses. And I would also say not to limit your newspaper search to Louisiana, because during this time period, Black newspapers around the country had dispatches from different places. So like the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier. So the first two images that I have are from the Louisiana Weekly. First one is a memorial, and they would run these even like after the anniversary of the person's death or so on. I found a few like with pictures, whereas like compared to like I have an obituary from this person in the New Orleans Times-Picayune, which is the white newspaper, that's just words. But if you go to the Black newspaper, you also have a picture and nice words about them and who misses them on the anniversary of their deaths. The second one is an advertisement for a Black business. This is also from Louisiana Weekly. It's the Cage Nightclub, and it features entertainment from Ernest Holland and the Cavaliers, which was my great uncle. And then see there's a picture of him in the bottom corner of the ad. The last photo, though, is from the Pittsburgh Courier. And this is about another one of my ancestors, Charles D. Levy, who was a customs inspector, one of the early Black customs inspectors in New Orleans. But as you see, is a part of a series of biographies of Southern men and women who have made good. It's called Successful Southerners. So that ran in the Pittsburgh Courier. So these Black newspapers, a lot of the times, were connected or had news about Black people, not just in that one city that the paper is printed from. Another thing that is like special or interesting, at least, about New Orleans is the fraternal organizations, benevolent societies, and social aid and pleasure clubs. So as early as the 1780s, Black people in Louisiana were organizing. And so one form of this was the benevolent or mutual aid societies, and they were formed essentially to pull each other up and provide the services that we needed or that Black people needed at the times. So some of those different purposes that they may have served included providing burial and medical insurance, political organizing, and there's even one that I read about that was buying the freedom of enslaved people that may have been their relatives and stuff like that. Some of them in New Orleans owned properties, like they owned a hall that they would have events at and rent out the space to people to gather. And they had events like debutante balls. So some of the Louisiana has some of the chapters of national and international organizations, but it also has those local groups. So some of the bigger ones that you might know are the Knights of Peter Claver, which is an organization of Black Catholics founded in Mobile, Alabama, but New Orleans has a lot of them as well. As well as the Prince Hall Freemasons and Order of the Eastern Star. So those are some of the larger organizations. But then you also have the local groups like that is the French name, but it's the Economy Society. I took Spanish, but I'll read it. And don't judge me for the pronunciation, but it's a Société d'Économie et d'Assistance Mutuelle. So Economy Society. And that was actually the one that I read about that was buying or that bought the freedom of enslaved people. And they also organized, like they were based in New Orleans, but these organizations talked amongst each other and talked, like the Economy Society was talking to people in Haiti and during the Haitian Revolution and stuff like that. And so also the Young Men's Olympian Junior Benevolent Association is one that I have highlighted here. And so the first picture is that of like a second line that they're holding. And then the second one is an ad that encouraged people to join that benevolent association. They were providing medical care or medical insurance. And so you would pay a certain amount. Right there it says $1, and that would provide insurance for you. That organization is one of the oldest in New Orleans, and it was founded, well, it says there that it was incorporated in 1885, but organized in 1884. So many of these groups have charters held at when they formed, they had to be chartered and that had to be notarized. So they may have records housed at the notarial archives. And then they also have, some of them have tombs. And if you are familiar with the way that we bury in New Orleans, they are above ground tombs, but they're tombs that hold some of their members or that you could pay into to be in when you die. And these are just some various resources. So some genealogical groups that I have interacted with. There's LA Creole, which is focused on Creole people in Louisiana. There is the Committee of le Comité des Archives de la Louisiane. That one is a broader one, but they have a lot of good records. And then there's also an OGS Louisiana chapter that was started recently. Some online resources that I've used are the Louisiana Digital Library. I believe that's also by Tulane, or might be through the regular library, but they have various collections there digitized. And then there's the Louisiana Slave Database by Gwendolyn Midlow Hall, and she pretty much organized a database of people who were enslaved. And you can search it and like search by name and stuff like that. Some books that I would recommend. This is also by Gwendolyn Midlow Hall. It's Africans in Colonial Louisiana, the Development of Afro-Creole Culture in the 18th Century. And it goes far enough back that it pretty much tells you a lot about how Louisiana was organized and founded, and that I found that to be very useful in how I think about researching in Louisiana. There is Our People and Our History by Rodolphe de Dune, and it is a series of biographies about, particularly about Creole people. And then there's also Economy Hall, The Hidden History of a Free Black Brotherhood by Fatima Sheikh. And that one is about one of the uh, mutual aid or benevolent societies that I mentioned before uh, on that slide. And that gives a pretty good, it follows the secretary of that organization uh, and gives a good painting of what was going on societally at the time, what these organizations were doing, as well as what was happening in the city and in the state that they may have been organizing for or against. So that is all I have. So any questions?
Yes, there's something in the chat. Let me go there.
Are we
Diane
able,
Trotter, can you see it? You go ahead. Go ahead.
yes, are we able to access any of these sources online? So these two that I mentioned are online. The newspapers primarily on newspapers.com and genealogybank.com. Those are two websites that I use for the newspapers. Xavier's digital archives are online. If you just Google that, it should come up.
At the college, at the university?
Yeah, it's the university, it's on the university's website.
Okay. So now I'm looking for, I have a relative who's like a second cousin, and I think he's the link between my family and his family from Tennessee. And all I can find on him is where he got married in 1906. So I have his family after that, but I don't have his parents. I don't know when he died. I don't have him on a census. So would you recommend some type of way to follow up on that?
Where was he? Was he in New Orleans?
He was in Cato, in Shreveport.
Mm-hmm. Um, I don't know. I would suggest the Louisiana State Archives. If you go to their website, they have a finding aid. You could probably search Shreveport and see what collections they might hold for Shreveport. If he happened to be a barber, there would have a record in that barber's directory that I mentioned. But I would just suggest checking with the Louisiana State Archives. If you don't know when he was born or died, then you probably couldn't get those vital records. But if you go to the Louisiana Secretary of State, if he has a name that is not uh, like John Smith, then you could search their vital records, and it'll pull up all the people in you could search by parish. You could search by that parish and put their name in, and it'll pull up all the people with that name. Uh if there
I was
is
going to try to get a birth certificate. I mean, not a death certificate, but you have to be, I guess, closely related to a person in order to do that.
No, it's actually available to anybody if they didn't die within the last 50 years. So if he died before then, and I can just pull up the Louisiana
granddaughter lives just right down the freeway from me. If we're able to get this together, that would be so cool.
If you go here to the Secretary of State death
Uh-huh.
records, so that's sos.la.gov.
SOS.la.gov. Okay.
And since you know the parish, you can do an advanced search. So it's last name, first name, middle, first and middle if he has a middle or if you know a middle. And then put in that parish, and it'll pull up everybody who died or who there is a record of the death for in that parish. And then it'll also take you through if you want to request it, it'll take you through the process of you can print out this form, fill it out, send a check or money order with it, and they return the record to you.
Okay. Thank you.
There's something else in the chat, I think. Oh, Sharon says, great resources. I didn't know about the university archives. Thanks. I'm with you. I forget that the different universities do have archives that may be helpful in all the different cities and states. The library archives.
Yeah, and I didn't show him there, but Dillard and Southern I've also found Dillard and Southern's yearbooks online, just through Googling from various websites.
And we can access them online, the university. Okay. My niece just started Xavier in September. And so I might even get a chance to go down there.
Well, if you do, check out their archives. Or what they don't have digitized.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing this.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Oh, Barbara's waving there.
Thank you. Just as an aside, did you find any family or any connections to, what is it, the Georgetown 260?
272. No, I
Thank
have
you. Okay. That
but
was no.
there's a list of them. That's something I forgot to, or I didn't mention. But I believe there's like a list or a database people are working on.
Okay, but I'm saying you didn't find any.
No, not in my family, no.
Okay, all right.
I'd like to pose the question, how many of you have relatives in Louisiana that's doing Louisiana research? Can you get a hand up? Raise your hand if you have Louisiana people. Okay.
2.
Oh, it's more. There's 1, 2, 3. Deja's family right there.
So maybe I could, if I can't find the information myself, maybe I could pay one of them to do the research, get death certificate for me, maybe.
Hint, hint, hint.
They just request a lot of death certificates. She didn't tell y'all that.
Tell us what? It's not easy.
She actually she requests a lot of death certificates and wait for them to come in the mail.
Yeah, I have
Okay.
a
Deja,
full of them.
introduce your parents.
Oh, this is my parents, Gary and Stacy Henry. They
Hi.
are
Nice to meet
from New
you.
Orleans, also have roots in Reserve. They are cousins.
Oh.
That's everybody. That's everybody.
Not cousins. Well, I mean, they are not
Our
related.
families crossed.
They cross for us getting married and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
Married. Our
yeah,
family
mutual
from the
relatives.
same place.
So we're not
Yes.
cousins.
Okay. I think there was something else in the chat. Who else was that? This
Oh, it's
Lashana
Barbara.
says, this is great. As soon as I get home, I'm going to search my family. Is Barbara Williams related to Ethlyn Williams? I don't think, no, Barbara's from Virginia. She's a transplant here. And Ethelyn's people are, well, I guess unless you may be going way back, the
I
Williamsons were in
already
North Carolina,
talked to
Virginia.
one on Ancestry, so we're going to get together this weekend on the Zoom.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, and this has been, I enjoyed it because was in, do you know the Tamara, when Tamara Johnson was on a while back, Deja, she mentioned something that's in Louisiana about Mississippi. Do you know what she was talking about? Some school that had some kind of Mississippi, you could get Mississippi research from there in Louisiana. You remember that conversation? No,
No.
okay. It was a university or something, but I'm not sure what that was. Oh, Cassandra, I didn't know you were on here. Well, let's let you know that we have a couple of new people. This is going to be housekeeping. So, if there are any more questions for Deja? Okay, Barbara, go ahead. Unmute.
Sorry. Have you run into anything on the Bambara tribe in southern Louisiana?
No.
Okay.
Okay, now tell us what that is, Miss Barbara, since you mentioned it.
The Bambara tribe is out of Western Africa. It would be now Senegal, what a couple of the countries east and mainly east and maybe north of that area. Richard saw a policeman in the car, looked exactly like his father. And Richard went up to the policeman and in his best French, which wasn't passing too well, he indicated that this man looked exactly like his father and asked from where the man had come. And he mentioned a country, and I can't think of the name of it, I'm sorry. But he also said he was Bambara. So one day I'm looking up American Indians in Houma, Louisiana, and the environs. And in the paperwork that I found, it talked about the Bambara and being the dominant African tribe in that area. Richard's grandmother is from New Orleans. And so I was like, Richard, you may be Bambara because, this paper says they were the dominant tribe from that part of Africa. So that's why I wondered if you had run across anything that related to them. And Richard's looking for a genealogist. He's been turned down by a couple whom I recommended.
Oh, well, all right. Well, you know what? One thing I would notice as far as Louisiana coming to before DNA, I would have said I had no Louisiana people. But since DNA, I've got all kinds of people who I've got these Broussards, I've got all kinds of these names are popping up, and I'm like, who are these people? Where they come from? So it is amazing what you find out that is a part of you that you weren't aware of, because we all assume that all of our people came in from Africa, into Virginia and along the coast there. And we know that found out that with the ships coming in, that there was a number coming into DC, coming in there, but then coming right back out, coming to the port of New Orleans in that area. There are different passages that we missed. And the ones who came from Africa went to the Caribbean and then came to New Orleans or Mobile. So we realize that now from research that you're going to find that you're thinking, I don't have anybody in Louisiana, but then you really may have someone from Louisiana, because I'm discovering people popping up in Florida that I'm blood kin to that I haven't a clue. So, and I would have said no. So I'm not going to close the door anymore about where our people are from, because we're from various places. And Deja, that was wonderful because you shared a lot of good information. And I will be going back looking at some of the details, because some of the repositories are very interesting, the very idea. And one other thing I would want to mention again, I think Sharon is still on here. Sharon Bruno is here from OGS, Houston, Texas. I think it's a Willie Gay chapter. Is it Willie Gay? Is that right? I don't want to pronounce it wrong.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah, she's the president of that ARCS chapter, and she came in on our meeting. So we're just happy to have everyone come tonight, and we'll be doing Teaching Tuesdays each second Tuesday in the month, and we'll have more people because I believe Glenn, we got you on. Is Glenn still on here? Glenn, and we'll be coming up in April. We've got
Yes, ma'am. I'm still here.
yeah, so he's going to be coming in April. He's an architect, and he's going to give us some enlightening information about what an architect from an architectural standpoint of research. So that should be interesting. But I thank you all for coming out this evening, and I'm have oh, go ahead and stop the recording, Deja.